Hey everyone, this is me again, and today we're going to get into what foods to avoid in higher tiers. The assertion that I make is that as you advance tiers, the body is pretty much similar to other bodies within that range in terms of sensitivity. Plus, if one person has an allergy, oftentimes it's because everyone is affected or has some kind of sensitivity or allergy. We just don't call it that, or the books don't call it that. The FDA doesn't call it that. The textbooks and doctors don't call it that. So I'm making claims that this is for everyone, but higher tiers will be more sensitive to it, so they need to focus on these foods particularly. So let's go through my assertions. I'll be looking at my notes and okay. Carrageenan, if I pronounce that correctly, for me, I found it can cause high blood pressure. And at night, it messes with my dreams. Sometimes I've even heard the collective ego in my dreams as I felt my body pulsating with blood. And I had a situation like this a number of times where the only thing I ate the only common denominator was the Carrageenan. So it can also lead to night sweats. And they put this in most whipped creams, so be careful. They put it in certain cookies, even Nature's Promise, which apparently was gluten-free, if I recall correctly. And it's, Nature's Promise. It's much healthier than other foods, so you got to look at the labels. Even if it says vegan, you want to make sure that it doesn't have that ingredient, because the FDA, USDA doesn't focus on that specific ingredient as a bad thing. It's unknown. But psychologically, it probably does have a lot of effects, even in terms of the blood vessels, in terms of blood dilation, blood vessel dilation. That is something that hasn't been discussed, but it probably is a factor. The next thing I noticed is chocolate. So the caffeine in chocolate, I eat chocolate nonetheless, okay? But the caffeine in chocolate does raise cortisol. So you will feel a little more energetic and jittery than if you didn't have it. So do not consume chocolate past 3 or 4 p.m. If you love chocolate, you're addicted, just make sure you have it before 3 or 4 p.m. And if you do have it past then, it's not the biggest deal. Worst case scenario, you'll fall asleep a little slower. Your dreams might be a little more vivid than normal, but nothing major. So it really isn't too bad. Now, corn is the third ingredient that I avoid. Corn has been bad for me since I was a little baby, and I personally just never digested it well. My body doesn't recognize it. So some people may be able to tolerate corn. Some people tolerate it better than others. But you'll be able to tolerate it better if the corn product that you're eating has many other ingredients in it, especially ingredients that are healthy. So if it has some cornstarch, but also has tapioca syrup, tapioca starch, things that are known to be okay and healthy, but it's not just a bunch of corn ingredients, then it may cancel it out a little bit more. And those ingredients that should be in it are either healthy or neutral. Okay? If you have more than 2 corn ingredients, or for me at least, it could be devastating. It could be really bad for your sensitivity. And for me, from my experience, it could be your body thinks it's getting sick, so responds by getting rid of it through night sweats. So I got night sweats when I had something called chocolate sticks with an X by the company Schär, S-C-H-A-R. And I wrote this down in my notes that it isn't even food. It's probably sponsored by the most unhealthy people in the world who may even have an agenda, of some kind, because it's literally not food. I was thinking to myself, maybe it's like the elites who want to kill us off, because I had it and I had night sweats and it really wasn't good for me. It was worse than gluten, worse than fried gluten. So I just looked up the CEO of this company, and guess what his name is? Dr. Donald Trump. Dr. Donald L. Skip Trump. No joke. The universe was making a clear sign that this is bad for us. It was making it obvious so that first of all, we know that there's something going on here, and we know not to eat it. Okay, so if you do have corn, the way to cancel it out, assuming that you are sensitive, which I believe most people, especially as you advance tiers, will be, drink a lot of water to assist with the detox. And having a diversity of foods, the same way diversity of ingredients helps for a food with corn in it, so to diversity of foods with that meal that you're consuming. It will dilute the ingredients and that you're sensitive to and help the body get rid of it. Okay, the fourth ingredient that I avoid is potato chips or anything that's dried out and oily. It sounds like why would this happen? But apparently the oils for the dried out vegetable of either potatoes or different dried out foods, like something that feels like you're crunching on chips, it doesn't sit well with my digestive system and probably not others. So I can be eating tons of corn, which is like the worst thing for me, but all of a sudden, if I have one potato chip, my body starts making noises. That's just it. You know, something to do with the oils. It messes with the digestive process. And that's something that other people may be interested in. So, you know, you may think it's harmless, but it's probably underrated in terms of how bad it is for the system. The fifth, I think, is gluten. Okay? So some people, they're allergic to wheat. I personally allergic to both dairy. I have a sensitivity to dairy and gluten. So there may be people who have an allergy or sensitivity to wheat, but I'm not making the claim that wheat's bad. I'm making the claim that gluten for most people is probably not good, especially from European descent and those who didn't have these things for 1,000 years in our evolutionary lineage. So what I do for gluten is I take certain pills, specifically gluten cutter. It's a GLUTENCUTTER. So that worked very well for me, 95% at least effective. So I barely noticed that I was eating gluten when I had those pills, 2 pills. 30 minutes is probably a good estimate. You know, if you go over 30 minutes, maybe take another pill or another 2 pills. But it's expensive, but it's worth it. If you have celiac disease, maybe test out 3 pills or just be careful as you try this out, because it's not about celiac. This is about those with a dairy problem mostly. And it's also not FDA approved, and they write that on the package. But it for sure works for those with lactose intolerant issues like myself. For dairy, I take the CVS lactase enzyme, and 2 for that works well for me every 30 minutes while I'm eating. And I started taking these Lactaid, it says Lactaid on it, that's the company and the name, but it requires 3 pills every 30 minutes. So if you're against pharmaceuticals, which is very smart, I probably will be someday when things become more available, readily, and expenses are easier. You may want to get something called Loomis enzymes, and they have one for this called LAC, which doesn't have any random additives to it. So usually 3 pills, if not 4 pills, worked. But I find that if you open it, it could be psychological, I don't think it is. If you open it and let the body take it in without the capsule, then the time frame is more consistent or parallel to the food you're eating, and it flows better, it absorbs easier with the dairy you're consuming. So you might need to open them up if the capsule is not good enough. If it takes too long, for example, and your body already starts absorbing the milk, the dairy. Okay, and if it does dissolve faster, you may even want to try 2 pills and not 4 or 3. So you can test that out. Loomis also provides gluten pills. So usually 3, I find gluten pills is good enough. Maybe you want to open it up and drink it in water so it absorbs faster. And to get the Loomis company, you have to have a license. No. You usually have to have a license in like some medical field, but if you don't, you probably don't get the discount. That's probably all it is. So you can sign up and all that, but if you're connected to massage therapy, you have a license in that, or you have a license in anything related to medical stuff, you could probably put that in the system and they'll recognize you and they'll give you that discount. So these are the major foods that I avoid. Obviously, sugar is a big one that everyone should avoid. And there's things like brown rice, they say has a high level of arsenic, so maybe you want to avoid brown rice over white rice. There's various stuff that you hear around the place that might be a good idea that, to avoid or to have over this. But these are the ones that really affect me the most. This is like short term. I'll see the effects right away. There are some things that are long-term, like sugar is a long-term thing. Fried food, probably a long-term thing. And so therefore, even though that's included, I didn't list them here. If you are able to avoid those, I highly recommend you do. Find replacement sugars. Maple sugar is the best replacement. Maple syrup is the best replacement. And I find that tapioca, things that have tapioca syrup, it's better than if you were just eating pure sugar. Also, the diversity of ingredients dilutes the potency of the unhealthy ingredients. So if you think in this way, you'll be fine. And once again, those 6 ingredients are crucial for me, and I believe what I assert is later tiers as well.